Well, I'm honored. I'm honored to be here. I really look forward to being there in person.
Someday
I'm
soon.
already excited about that, and I know it's going to happen. I do think there is something crazy on my end because my camera looks a little jumpy, and I don't know why. But as long as we can hear each other and see each other, we're good. Happy to see you, Vicky. Much love to you, you and Teddy. Um, but yeah, my life, as far as what I do most of the time, is music. I'm the youngest of five brothers. There's only 8 years between me being the youngest and my oldest brother Reggie. Only 8 years, but some kind of way my four older brothers knew that I was the bass player before I was born. They were already playing music, and it's a true story. They were already playing. My oldest brother Reggie, he taught me how to play, but he also taught my brother Joseph, who's 3 years older than me. And Reggie, Roy, and Rudy are only a year apart from each other, but Reggie's the oldest. And Reggie definitely knew that I was going to be the bass player because he already had a vision of the band at such an early age. So I'm thinking if I'm not even born yet, Reggie's not even 8 yet. Because Reggie's a little less than 8 years old. So the real story is Reggie. I get all the credit, but the real story is Reggie because he saw it, and he saw it in me. But in the same way that I learned to speak English because my family spoke English, I learned to speak music because my family spoke music. So my outlook on it is a little bit different because I didn't learn it in what would be considered the normal way, which is, taking lessons, piano lessons, or or whatever. A lot of the times in music, we try to teach the students the rules first. We teach them how to read. We teach them what the right notes are in every key, and it really slows us down. And everything I say is my thoughts, my opinion. It doesn't make me right, but it doesn't make me wrong either. But we teach music in a way that slows people down because we want them to learn rules first. But when we're learning our natural native language, you let a child speak however they want. And if you think about it, when a baby is speaking, they're not really speaking English as it pertains to words. Every word they say is wrong. But we never tell a baby that. A baby may be 10 years old and calling it a blankie. Where's my blankie? And even if they're 10 years old, you never correct them. And as a parent, you say, well, here's your blankie. You say the wrong word also. Because we realize when children are young that it's not about the word they're saying. It's about the intention behind what they're saying. And if the intention is right, we'll learn what they're saying. When a baby is learning to talk, we learn their way first. We don't force them to learn our way the way we do with music. In music, if I'm in the key of C major, you have to play the right notes. If you play a C sharp and we're in the key of C major, I tell you right away, you're wrong. Well, when you're a beginner at anything, you're usually wrong more than you're right. So when you hear that you're wrong every time, who wants to hear that? You quit. So a lot of people quit music lessons. I didn't sign up for that, to hear that I'm wrong every time. But we never do that with our babies learning life. We allow them to be wrong. We allow them to be themselves. And when they're talking, everything about what they say from the moment they're born, everything they say is right. The only thing that might be considered wrong is the word, right? They're not using English or whatever the first language is, words, but the tone is right. If they're upset, the pitch goes up. The tone gets harsher if they're upset. If they're happy, it gets more playful. Everything else is right. And what we find out in language is that it's the other things that make the word right, that make you understand each other. And in music, it's the same way. And in music, there's only 12 notes. There's not an infinite, you know, combinations. There's only 12. So in every key, there's only 7. So why would I diminish my options? So every note, all 12 notes can be used at any time. It's how you use them that is the key. And that's why I say there are no wrong notes. There are notes that I didn't intend to play. I didn't mean to play that note, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. If music came out the way I wanted it every time, it would be boring. If life happened perfectly every moment of every day, we'd be bored. It's when things that go wrong happen and we succeed anyway. We're still here to talk about it. That's what makes life joyful and eventful. Nobody talks about riding through the Arizona desert for 100 miles and we made it there on time. We didn't run out of gas. Our air conditioner worked. We didn't get a flat tire. Nobody talks about that. The joy is getting through life and being here to talk about it together through its ups and downs. Music is the same way. Music gets more exciting when you use the wrong notes.
Yeah. What a beautiful lesson. You know, I know that you've spoken before about, as a musician or as any creative person, it's those mistakes that end up being the jewel. I know in the recording studio for myself, and I'm sure for you many times, like you make a mistake, then you listen to it and you say, oh, keep that. I didn't intend that. I didn't do that on purpose. I thought for a second it was going to be a wrong note, a mistake. But then you listen back, it's like, no, that's perfect. There's something slightly off about it, but that's cool.
Yes.
And something cool about that slight divergence. Can you talk about that a little bit? And you've talked before about sliding into the so-called right note. If you hit the wrong note, slide into the right one. And that's cool. So,
sure.
Talk about that?
Absolutely. It's that ugly shirt my wife keeps telling me to throw away, but there's something about it that I love and I can't get rid of it. You know, we all have things like that around our house that mean something to us. And it's the meaning more than the appearance. You know, again, I love to speak about kids because we do it right with kids in most cases. You know, when we send our child to kindergarten and they dip their hands in paint and they put it on the paper and they just make this mess and they bring it home with their first piece of art. And it's still on the refrigerator today, you know, 30 years later, we still have it because it wasn't what came out of it. It was what the child put into it. And if you think about with music, there's only 12 notes. That means, you know, James or you or me or anyone else, when we buy our instrument, the 12 notes come with it. You can buy the notes and we all have the same. So why do we like some musicians over others? It has very little to do with the notes. It's the other stuff. So if we think about this, we have 12 notes, and only 7 letters, A to G. But, you know, some of the letters you can have an A sharp and A flat. You can have a B, a C sharp, or a D flat. C sharp and D flat sound the same, but they're technically different notes. I can get into that if anyone wants to, but they're technically different notes. They're like homonyms. They like words in English that sound the same but have different meanings. So, but there's only 12 notes, and if we choose a key, if I'm in the key of C major, D minor, only 7 of the notes are technically in the key, what we call diatonic to the key, meaning they're in that key. But it doesn't mean that the other 5 notes, remember there's 12, 7 are in the key. That leaves 5 that aren't. The cool notes are those 5. And I could get into that. I wish I just got back into town and I don't have everything set up here, so I don't have a bass set up to where I could really demonstrate this for you. But the cool notes are the wrong ones, the ones that are non-diatonic. They're not in the key. Those are the ones that make you feel, wow, you go, ooh. So if you know anything about music, even if you don't, you can understand this concept. If I play a C major scale, I go C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. That's 7 notes. Those are the ones that are in the key of C major. But between C and D, there's a C sharp. Right? C sharp or D flat between C and D. Between D and E, there's a D sharp. So there's a few extra notes that we're not using. But what happens is, if you think about a piano keyboard, if you can envision a piano keyboard, you have white keys and black keys. Okay, if you start on the right place on the keyboard and you play only the white keys, you'll get a C major scale. But what you'll notice is that there are 5 black keys that we're not touching for that C major scale. But if for some reason I'm not careful and I hit a black key, what I'll notice is that on either side, touching every black key, is a white key. And what that symbolizes and is showing you is that anytime you hit one of the 5 wrong notes, you're only one step away. You're actually touching on either side. You're touching a right note. So you're always, and this is always, meaning 100% of the time. So get this, 100% of the time. Okay, not 50, not 20, 100% of the time. If you hit a wrong note, you can move one note away in either direction, and you're right again. It's that easy. So you can literally know nothing about music and make great music. And there's a lot of people that do that. Right? Willie Nelson, one of my favorite musicians, only knows a few chords. And I'm guessing this. I do know that B.B. King only ever played a few notes. But he played a lot of music. Remember, there's only 12 notes anyway. So when I say when you hit a wrong note, you're only a half step away from a right note. And if you use the wrong note in a cool way, it'll make the right note sound better. So the real key to playing good music is how you use the wrong notes. That's my opinion of it. So you're never lost. And I'll say this, no matter how good you get in music, you're going to play wrong notes for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So you might as well make friends with them and learn how to use them.
And that's why this is all about life. This is not about being a musician. This is a lesson for life.
Absolutely. I'm sorry to interrupt you here, James, but I usually talk about life through music so that people will listen. If I say, okay, well, today we're going to talk about racism. Today we're going to talk about politics. Today we're going to talk about religion. Today we're going to talk about women's rights, gays' rights, equality, inequality. People already have their opinions set. They're ready to argue or not, ready to fight, but I'm not moving. I voted for this person. I don't care what you say. But music, we come with an open ear. When musicians come to go, when people go to hear musicians, they come open. I don't come thinking about politics. I don't come to listen thinking about the color of the skin of the person next to me. I don't have to ask if James Twyman plays a song and when it moves us and we turn and hug or high five the person next to us, we don't feel the need to interview them first. Who'd you vote for first before are you vaccinated? The music moves us. So music is one of the main things in life that brings people together who are already in the mindset of agreeing and accepting. That's why they're there. Right? We are, the color of our skin, our politics, our religion, our monetary status, all goes away for those few moments that we're listening to music. And if you think about a band, a musical band, a band is better when all the instruments are different, not the same. So think about it. In music, we celebrate. Well, first we recognize our differences, and then we celebrate them. So in other words, if I'm playing with Jimmy and he's playing his cuatro, his four-stringed instrument, I don't say, hey, be more like a saxophone. I don't tell the flautist, the flute player, hey, be more like a drummer. No, we want the cuatro to be the cuatro. We want the flute to be the flute. Vocalist, be a vocalist. We celebrate you for who you are. And it's beautiful. This is the way life should be. And it happens on stage every time. It brings people together. And it makes us relate to each other. Or better yet, it gives us permission. And we know that even before we get there, which is one of the biggest reasons we go. In many cases, it's not even because the music is good. It's because of that community that the music provides. And so my brothers have always said, be musical even when you put your instrument down. And that was their way of telling me, even as a kid, to use this, what we call a superpower that musicians have. It's like that story of the Pied Piper blowing the flute and the mice are following them. It's big. The stories are always bigger than what they're saying. Right? People will follow musicians. If a politician says, raise your hands in the air, people might do it. If a policeman says, raise your hands in the air, people might do it. But if a musician says, everybody put your hands in the air, look at Vicky. Everybody's doing it on their own. Right? Look at, I see you, Sharon. Everybody does it. Yeah, Charlene, you do it on your own. Music gets you to do it. My brother calls it feminine power. Calls music feminine power because it gets you to respond and act without force. What he calls masculine power is using force to force you to do it. Music gets you to do it on your own accord, and it's beautiful, which is why us musicians should get really, really good at it.
Wow. Reminds me of one of my favorite lines from St. Augustine when he said, when we sing, we pray twice. Ooh. Something magical happens. So Vic, I have one more question for you. You and I have a friend named Jeff Pivar, who's, in my mind, one of the greatest guitarists in the world. And when he was very young, he was able to play in Ray Charles' band. Wow. And two really quick stories that Jeff told me. First, of course, he's very excited, to play in the band, and he always wanted to record with Ray. And one day, Ray invited him to the studio, and Jeff, he was like 18 at the time, and so he's a prodigy guitarist. And Ray Charles invites him into the studio, but being a little cocky, Jeff says to him, "Well, you know that when I record, I get double scale." The scale is the bottom line that you have to play a union performer. So he's saying, I get double scale, at least twice that when I record. And Ray said, double scale? I don't pay God double scale. But then they were recording, and Jeff is trying to impress him by how many notes he can play, how fast he can play. And then Ray takes him to the side, and he basically tells him, the magic is in the space between the notes, not the notes themselves. You want to speak a little bit about the magic between the notes, Victor?
Yeah, absolutely. My brother Joseph is really better at talking about this. When I talk, I'm usually quoting my brothers or my parents. But space is what allows everything to exist. Space is like the number 0, where in numbers, we think of 0 as nothing. I have 0. I have nothing. But if you take a 0 and place it after any number, it multiplies that number by 10. So In music, space is the same. Space is if you learn how to use space in music, space is the element, I don't know, the part of music that draws a person towards you. And it's the same as in language. You know, if you ask me to tell you, if you say, Victor, tell me about your brother Rudy, and I said, well, Rudy passed away in 2010, you know, way before his time, but man, when he was young, he used to play two saxes at once. He played an alto and a C melody. He was literally our horn section as a child. And in high school, he won the Soloist Jazz Award 2 years in a row because he took his jazz solos through jazz changes using two saxes. And, you know, you'd listen to me and get excited or whatever. But if you said, Victor, tell me about Rudy, and I say nothing, I can't even speak. Maybe a tear runs down my cheek, and I inhale, but no words. That energy of space will cause you to want to close the gap. You'll want to come towards me. And maybe eventually put a hand on me, touch me. So music's the same way. When you learn how to use space, and it's a part of music we don't teach. Most teachers don't teach it. They don't know how. Don't know how. There's a few of us though that do, because when I was being asked to teach, I started studying what people were teaching, and I realized 99% of teachers were only teaching notes, the 12 notes. We call it music theory, and that's scales and harmony and ear training and intervals and modes and all of this stuff. It's good stuff, but it only deals with the 12 notes. But again, you can buy the notes. They come with your instrument. What makes B.B. King as a guitarist sound different from Jimi Hendrix and sound different from Pat Metheny and sound different from Wes Montgomery or sound different from Eric Clapton is not that they're using new notes, right? Pat Metheny's a great jazz musician, but he's not so great that he gets a 13th note. Still the same 12 as B.B. King uses. What makes them all sound different? It's the other things. So I set my sights on looking at the other things and finding ways of teaching them, because not too many people were. And space was the one that really jumped out to me, because space, when you learn how to use it in life or in music, it's one of the most powerful things there are, which is why a lot of us are looking for it in life through meditation, through rest, through whatever it is. We're trying to find that space. It's that space that allows everything else to be. And when you surround whatever it is in your life or in your music by space, like the number 0, it'll multiply it by tenfold. And I believe that's why we're all after it. It's that magical thing that it's like trying to hold water. You have to hold it gently, and in many cases you have to let it find you. Yeah, but some of us can get so good. Well, we all can, but some of us, like, you know, we've met people and monks who have learned to just use that space. It seems like they live in it. They can go there. They can summon it. They can become it. There are musicians that do the same thing. And I like to use Willie Nelson a lot, because when he sings, he doesn't follow the American Idol or the voice thing where you have to get your high note within the first 3 minutes and show all your riffs right away. He surrounds every note with space. And that's why you feel it. This is what B.B. King was telling Jeff Peavard. And it sounds like... oh no, was it Ray Charles? Ray Charles was telling Jeff Peavard, and it sounds like Ray Charles was being very kind. I have another good friend, a bassist named Steve Bailey, a longtime great, one of my best friends, who toured with Dizzy Gillespie on bass for a while. And Steve, you know, he's a crazy monster, just can play anything on the bass. And in his young days, he was touring with Dizzy, and he took a solo one night on Dizzy's famous song "A Night in Tunisia," and Steve played just all kinds of fast, crazy stuff and got a lot of applause. It's really amazing to see people do that. But after the show, Dizzy said, "Steve, remember this, when you play music, leave some holes. You never know. Music might fall out." So that was Dizzy's not so nice way of saying the same thing. Leave some space. And everything in life points to that. Right? My favorite food might be pizza, but by the fifth night, I don't want to see another piece of pizza. You have to get away from things. And to me, that's how life works. Life works in opposites. To have one thing, you have to have the other. And that's one of the reasons I really like the yin-yang symbol, because it kind of helps me show me how life works, at least the human world of life. Because to know something, we have to have something else. Because humans have been given what we call choice. And you can't make a choice unless what you wouldn't choose is possible. So it has taught me to bless what I don't like, because it gives me the choice not to choose it. So now, instead of cursing all the things I don't like, I bless them. And it's been a long learned lesson, and I'm still working on it. At least I know it now. Now it's just to become it and feel it, But that, to me, that is space. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of matter. And it's that place also that exists in the middle. We all want to be balanced. We all want to live in the middle, balanced. But if you think about the person on the high wire at the circus, they're 50 feet up on a high wire. They're holding a pole that helps them balance. But their awareness can't just be in the middle. Balance is not just ignoring what's on both sides. It's being totally aware of what's on both sides. But I exist physically in the middle, but mentally I'm out there. So if you think about the person on the high wire that's holding that pole, if they're not aware of both ends of that pole, they will fall. That's why they're doing this. They're moving these ends. If I'm not aware of both of these ends, and I've got 2 feet on this side and 8 feet on that side, I'm too heavy. So life is the same way. And again, this is all my take on it. Don't claim to be right or wrong. But to me, being balanced, being in that central point, is not ignoring, but being so aware of it that I can exist here. And if I think of all my heroes, whether it's Jesus, St. Francis, Gandhi, Dalai Lama, Dr. Martin Luther King, they did exactly that. They didn't just hang with people who were centered. They went to both edges, the people who had it together and the people who didn't. And that's how they existed so well in the middle. And I believe if we can do the same, not an exclusion of the outer edges, but of complete awareness and acceptance of it, is what allows us to stay in the middle, the zero place, what we call balance.
Wow. I'm glad I asked that question. Well, we're going a little bit longer than normal, but I do want to give Vicki and Teddy just a real quick chance to say something, especially Vicki, because I know the two of you are so close, and she's always just given just the right little piece at the end. So Vicki, what would you like to say to or about Victor?
Oh, Jimmy, thank you. And Victor and Jimmy, I love you. And thank you for being the space between all the notes in your presence all the time, whether you've got an instrument in your hand, a book in your hand, or just love in your hand. And I want to thank Teddy, because Teddy's the one that showed me that video of Victor's. He knew I wouldn't like any other music, but he knew I'd like that. And he was right. Victor, you said one thing that was really caught my heart. Your family spoke music. Victor, your family spoke light and love, and they still do. And I've seen that through you and through them. And that's what you demonstrate all the time. And I really appreciate it, and I thank you. And I am a good Christ Scout. I spotted that right away. And I'm very, very grateful, because you really are my dearest brother. And I celebrate the gift of presence and the silence, that the light comes through, like Alice said on the chat. That space between the notes is space for love to come busting through. So thank you for being the space in the whole music industry, wherever you go, and open that space, not just in music, but for everyone as that presence. So Jimmy, you too, and Victor, thank you. Two beautiful, like twin soul brothers. Thank you very much.
I'll never forget when I took Vicky with me to pick Victor up at Logan Airport in Boston. It's the only time I've ever seen Vicky starstruck, is when she first met Victor. And Teddy, since you're the one who introduced Vicky to Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, which is the band that Victor plays for, or Victor himself, why don't you say a few words of what you heard today?
Well, you can't say it any better than Victor said it. Just like you can't play a bass any better than Victor plays it. You know, I first saw Victor when we had the center in Byron Bay in Australia. That's the first time I saw you. And when I came back, I had to take Vicky and Teddy. And when Teddy saw him, he was jumping all over the place. He couldn't believe it. But I was going to say this. Vicky and I had a conversation the other day about what Victor was talking about. And what I was saying is a fretless guitar or a fretless bass, so that you can make the mistakes and still get it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The fretless lets you get in between the notes, right? And really, to me, that's such a great analogy of life. You know, a lot of people live either they're right or they're wrong, but there's this place in between. And the fretless instruments. And for those that don't understand, a guitar, and you see Jimmy play, you know, there's these, the guitar neck has these like metal lines on it. So when I press the string down, it's the line that makes the note for me. But on a fretless, you have to, there's no line, so you can just slide like a violin or a cello. And you have to put your finger in the right note. It's a lot harder to play. So you have to really be, a master or really good on that instrument to make good music with a fretless. And it's in life the same way, when we can exist in the in-between of what's right and wrong and realize that's where the space is. That space between the notes. That's what creates rhythm, the space between the notes and the beats. And it's really that space in between. That's where respect lies. That's where I don't have to just be right or wrong. Right? We don't have to agree, but if we respect each other, we can disagree and still hug each other and be friends. But that to me is the equivalent of the fretless, what you're talking about, Teddy. Yeah.
So we're all called to lose our frets. That's what we're doing. We're losing our frets. That's the transformation. So Victor, I want to thank you for coming and joining us today. You're welcome anytime, of course. And I also want to mention, Victor has an incredible book called The Music Lesson. And if you go to the Guitar Center and you go to their book section, pretty much all you see are books of music. And his is usually the only book, like normal book, that is there other than just sheet music books. So if you go to Guitar Center or order it online, it was one of the first things that I had been exposed to Victor. I didn't even realize that until I was packing up everything at my former retreat center out near Ashland, Oregon. And when we're packing up the books, there is an early just photocopied version of that you sent me before the book ever came out. So I was so grateful. I saved it. I have it somewhere still.
Well, you were a big inspiration for that book. I was reading your books.
Yeah.
So one of the things that helped me think along these lines, yeah.
Amazing. So Victor, thank you, Vicky, Teddy, all of you. Thank you so much. This has given us a lot just to be with, not to think about, but to be with, and let it take us. We don't need to try and take hold of it. It will take us if we just let it. And that's what I think this lesson is for. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Namaste.